And joining us now to unpack this week's major political developments, we have political analyst and UPLB professor Antonio Contreras. Professor, good morning. Good to have you with us here on the show.
Good morning, Pawi.
All right, Professor. Well, it was quite an eventful week in the political front, but let's start with perhaps the biggest news this week, and that was the announcement of Vice President Sara Duterte that she will indeed run for the presidency in 2028. Prof, how significant is that early declaration, and what does it signal to the public, to her rivals, and even her allies?
Well, the significance of the announcement is that it was very underwhelming. If you look at the way it was done, the way it was, the speech was delivered, it was obviously lacking some spectacle in it that is expected of an announcement for a candidacy. It's as if it was like a knee-jerk reaction or something. There's no fanfare. So that is what struck me there. Now, of course, we already expected that Sara Duterte will run. And I think what is just surprising is that it was too early to do it.
Well, you did mention that it was lacking spectacle. Do you think that was deliberate on the part of the Vice President?
Well, I don't think so. I think they're reacting to something. I think the reason why they announced early is because there were some triggers and there are possibilities why maraming pwedeng maging rason kung bakit. But I think one of those would probably be because, they want to steal the narrative.
Right.
There are two things that are coming in right now. She's going to face the impeachment process in the House of Representatives, and her father is going to face the court in The Hague for the confirmation of charges. And so here they are both passive personalities. They're just on the receiving end. So they need to be in charge. And the best way to spin the narrative is to create a noise. To own something and be the author of it. And I think that this is an attempt to do it.
But Prof, in your opinion, how much of this move would be considered as a defensive strategy, meaning it's meant to project strength amid the impeachment complaints that the Vice President is facing, and how much of it is also offensive in a sense that she is setting the tone already as early as now, leading up to 2028?
Well, if it is defensive, if it is offensive, I think the lack of spectacle tells you a lot. If you're going to make if you want to make a dent, then you better make it like it's Big Bang. The fact that it was very lackluster means that the intention is really just to own a narrative. As to whether it's going to be a strategy that will shape the way, for example, how the impeachment process will go. Some people are saying the reason why she did it is to scare or threaten the members of the House of Representatives. Now, you have to understand that many members of the House might be opportunists, and I'm sorry to say that. But they're also not stupid to make an early move of moving towards here this early. Remember there are still two budget cycles coming, the 2027 GAA and the 2028 GAA. So to be in the majority, to be at the good side of the administration is still a lot plus now. And besides, it could also backfire. If you're going to threaten the members of the House to side in you in the impeachment, now it could even backfire. It could even galvanize their opposition to you. They want you not to run anymore in 2028, so they might as well mobilize to impeach you and found you guilty.
So this is
that can backfire.
right. So this is definitely a very precarious moment for lawmakers. So you don't see any major political realignments happening anytime soon. Lawmakers should take a more cautious stance right now, Professor?
Oh yeah, because for example, right now there is a supermajority. If you're going to, ditch the supermajority, you're going to the minority. And who are in the minority? These are the Akbayan Bloc and the Makabayan Bloc. And some of the Liberal Party. There is a Rize there, who's a liberal, and is also very is for Lenny. So you have to understand that this is something that is not strategic to her. The only time that this can really be to her advantage, if there is an overhaul of the entire House, which is a big migration of members of the majority turning to her. I don't see that happening right now. More so that this is 2026. There are, like I said, dalawa pang budget cycle ang papasok. Yung makapag-deliberate ng budget for 2027, which is not yet an election year, and the 2028 budget, which is an election budget. And members of the House, sabi ko nga, kahit marami dyan ang political butterflies, marami dyan ang mga opportunists, they're also not that stupid that they're going to make a move right now, that it's too early when the leverage is still with Malacanang and the majority.
Okay, so Professor, we're still 2 years away from 2028, but as early as now, tandems are already being floated. Among them is a Sara Duterte and Amy Marcos partnership. What do you make of that tandem?
We can always conjure of tandems right now, from the hilarious to the serious. But the thing that we need to do right now is to think about whether it's going to wash and they're going to win. You have to understand that there is this curse in the Philippine elections that if the first who declare candidacy and usually loses, and the first to top the poll, the surveys also lose. So yun yung dalawang curse na maaaring harapin ng mga nauunang nagdedeklara. It's, I don't know whether Sara Duterte wants to break that curse and that jinx, but that's the reality of history. Because when you declare early, then the two things, you can either attract people to your side, or you can galvanize opposition to you, and that's the second one is more likely, knowing that there are a lot of things that can be said about Sara Duterte. You have to understand that she's saying that she's running because anyway she's being attacked, but you have to understand that she's being attacked, but she's not dodging a lot. She's not responding, she's evading, she's using squid tactics. But now, because of the impeachment process, then she has no choice but to face the evidence and explain. So this time it's going to be a different ball game. Maybe that's the thing that she fears a lot, because when the impeachment process comes and there's a finding of sufficiency and substance, then there will be now unpresentation of evidence even at the level of the committee of the Justice Committee in the House. So lalabas na doon yung mga iniiwasan niya noon sa hearing. Hindi na siya pwede makapag-tantrum ngayon. Hindi na siya pwede mag-name calling lang ngayon. She has to fight evidence with evidence.
Right. But Professor, going back quickly to that Duterte-Amy Marcos tandem, do you think that Duterte loyalists are willing to embrace another alliance with a Marcos at this stage? And likewise, will the so-called Solid North also rally behind another Duterte?
Well, Pawi, earlier I told you that we are free to conjure of tandems from the hilarious to the serious. So I want to emphasize again the hilarious part of it, because that's how I see this tandem. In fact, people are already making fun of it right now with the hashtag. They call it the Duterte-Amy partnership as the Do Me hashtag. So it's kind of twist of words. So
why is it a hilarious tandem for you, Professor?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's you said it. You pointed that out. It's not. There's so much point there.
Nuances?
The Duterte people will not like that. Will question being partnered with the Marcos, even if it's Jaime. And it could not also ride on the sentiment of the Ilocano vote, because they would see Jaime has betraying the name of the Marcos surname. So it's not a palatable, politically attractive tandem, and it's not even going to sell to the feminists, because you have to understand that if you're going to sell it on the issue of both of these are women, then many feminists are arguing that these are two very problematic women. So you have to understand that it's not even going to draw fire from the feminist movement. So I think there are so many flaws and holes in this particular tandem. That's why the only thing that we can. And besides, even Amy is dismissing it, when Robin Padilla, and it comes from Robin Padilla, and you have to remember that. Robin Padilla was the one who's pushing this. She even said, pasaway si Robin. So even she would think that it's not a serious matter.
Well, Professor, it's no secret that Vice President Sara Duterte is a strong contender, well, at least based on surveys and some of the analysis of experts. But the next question there is, what would it take to beat Sara Duterte in 2028 for the presidency? There are now talks of an alliance possibly forming between the administration, the Marcos administration, and the traditional opposition. There's even that meeting set to take place this weekend between the president and former VP Leni, although they did say, Yusek Castro clarified, walang usapan dyan ng alliance. It's only about the Kontrabaha program. But how are you reading that possible alliance there?
When you speak of surveys, Pawi, you have to understand that Sara is getting about 30% of the respondents, 30%, and there's still 70% out there they don't like Sara Duterte. So this is the point. I think the best strategy to defeat Sara is to unify people. And so the possibility of a Leni Marcos alliance, or Marcos that's in Nagturan but BBM can endorse, is something that can be formidable, because and I hope people can, because I see already some of the Leni loyalists already cringing, and a lot of the Marcos loyalists saying some horrible things about again that particular possibility. But you have to understand that what is the alternative? It could even be worse. So we keep on hammering the thought that Sara is the strongest, but you have to understand 30% is not strong. That's the other half of the 70%. So we can only make it strong if the 70% will fracture and fragment. So the point is that 70% should unify. So I think that's the best strategy.
Well, former Vice President Leni Robredo already said that she has no plans to run in 2028, but her party mates are trying to convince her to reconsider. Do you think Vice President Leni Robredo could make another run for the presidency, mount a formidable campaign, and what should she do differently from 2022?
Well, I think the point is Leni has matured as a politician right now. And there are many things that have happened since 2022. She would not be the first candidate if ever she runs who first said no and then changed their minds. We have so many people like that. Even Rodrigo Duterte did that, before. He said he was not going to run, and he ran. So I think the point that will make Leni stronger is that the context is different. The person may be the same, change a bit, but it's the different context. Some people see this election as existential. It is an existential threat to the republic. So I think that is something that needs to be the issue of the China threat, the issue of the corruption and the flood control anomalies. There are new elements that need to be considered, because that the political landscape has become more perilous if we make the wrong decision in 2028.
Well, a lot of things can still happen leading up to 2028, but for now, we're going to have to leave that conversation there. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us this morning. That was Professor Antonio Contreras from the University of the Philippines.
Thank you.